There are currently 1.4 billion people on the African continent with an average age of just 19 years old, which means you can think about Africa as one extravagantly large college town. That's probably why I chose to study college students when I went. But seriously, by the year 2060, less than 40 years from today, Africa is going to be the most populated region on planet Earth, which is to say that those 19-year-olds, those young adults, aren't just youths, but they are in fact the foundation generation for the future of that continent. So when I got the opportunity to go to Sierra Leone, West Africa, where the average age is also 19, it was like a microcosm to the macro. My trip was approved through Florida Agricultural and Mechanical University in conjunction with my master's internship program. It was sponsored by Dunia Fore, a non-governmental organization founded by FAMU's own illustrious anthropology professor, Dr. Nzinga Metzger. When I asked Dr. Metzger if I can go with her to Africa, she very calmly and cavalierly was like, yeah, sure. Meanwhile, I'm screaming on the inside, kind of out of excitement, right? But then she looks at me and she says, but you gotta conduct your own research, and you have to do your own ethnography. And she said that because she knew I would have just held her bag just to be in Africa. So the search was on. This is January, I leave in June. What is my research question gonna be? So I do what most 90s babies and millennials do. I go to YouTube. And when I go to YouTube, I stumble upon this interview conducted by DW. They're asking a number of youth in Sierra Leone, what do they want to see changed in their nation? One said something about money. The other said something about infrastructure. Another one said something about health. But everybody else, individually but almost simultaneously, said they want to see the mindset of the Sierra Leoneans change. As an anthropologist, this is intriguing. But as an activist, I know exactly what they're talking about. I've been doing this work for 10 years, and let me tell you something. When you want to bring that change that you want to see, but the mentality doesn't match the need, well, I said, these kids got the same issues that we have. So I came up with this question. How are the youth in Sierra Leone able to, or not, leverage their resources like technology to enhance their opportunities for themselves, their communities, and the nation? Now I got my question, but I still got to figure out who I'm going to ask. Because I know I said youth, but in a nation of 8 million people, where over 6 million of them are under the age of 35, I had to get more specific. So I decided to focus on the students at Forebay College. Forebay is a part of the larger branch of the University of Sierra Leone. Very prestigious school. I chose it for a few reasons. One, you never actually hear about college students when you hear about the news and what's going on in Africa. I want to bring them to the fold. Two, Forebay was once known as the Athens of Africa because it's the oldest Western-style university on the continent. And lastly, because there's a saying in the nation that goes, when Forebay sneezes, Sierra Leone gets sick. What they're saying is there's a ripple effect from this campus to the community. How accurate is that statement? Every president in Sierra Leone came from this school. 90% of their politicians, all of their doctors, all of their lawyers, all of their engineers, the civil service. I say it's pretty accurate, right? Now, I'll spare you the details of how I got to Africa, but I'll say it was very eventful. I got there on a Thursday night, a week late, missing the largest conference in the history of the country. Friday, all the banks were shut down, couldn't get money. Saturday, I spent the entire day at the airport because, shout out to Air France, somehow my bag didn't arrive when I did. But then on Sunday, I finally got a chance to visit the city, Freetown a bit, the capital. I got a chance to try cassava leaf and rice, a national staple. For any of my Caribbean people, it's very similar to callaloo. I got to go to Lester's Peak, the highest point in Freetown. You can see the entire city and the Atlantic Ocean. Then I took a driving tour of Forebay, And while I was on that driving tour, I saw a big sign that says the Department of History and African Studies. I said, that's where I'll start. And a few days later, that's what I did. I woke up early, I hopped on a motorbike. It took me 2, it was supposed to take me 4. And I had them pull up right in front of this sign. I got out smooth. And as I was walking up to the building, I ran into this guy. He looked at me, and I looked at him. But I had been in Sierra Leone long enough to know that it's the type of look that they give you when they want to talk to you. Come holler at me. That's what I got from him. So I went, I introduced myself. I told him what I was doing in Sierra Leone, and he could see how much I cared. And I asked him, where does he think I should start? This brother took me all over the campus. He took me into the history department. He took me to the provost and the principal. And then he took me to the student government. And let me tell you something. The student government at forebears, those kids move differently. I mean, I go as far as to say they did my research for me. What do I mean by that? Well, I intended to do 100 surveys and 20 interviews. By my 3rd day on campus, I had literally already done 50 surveys and 4 interviews at an hour each. That's how good they were. But I'm sure you're wondering, what did I ask them, right? We started with the quantitative questions: age, gender, economic background, how many languages did they speak? Do they have access to internet? What are their thoughts on social media? Can anyone guess the average age of my survey? 19. It was actually 22. I had a few 30-year-olds that fell into my survey. But nonetheless, still very youthful. Then I asked the qualitative questions. How do they define culture? How do they maintain their culture if they wanted to? I asked them about mental health. I feel like that's always left out when it's coming to us. Number 5 came from an elder that once told me, success is becoming what you think about the most. You should have saw the looks on their faces when I asked 19, 20-year-olds, where do they see themselves in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years? And to the ones that want to build orphanages. It was beautiful. Down to the last question. What do they have for you? Questions they had for you, statements they had for you all. It was a very beautiful experience. And all of these questions led me to one last question, a question that I'll be researching for the next 20 years. How do the youth of Sierra Leone view nation building in peacetime nation? I asked this question because I care. I care about us everywhere. And this is what I learned. In terms of if forebears sneezes, the nation gets sick, I see that campus as a health center for their country. All of the divisions I saw outside of that campus, I saw them addressing on that campus in such a way that gave me great hope for those young adults and the nation that they are inheriting. How much they helped me. I was only there for 6 weeks. But the way they help me is the way they help each other on a daily basis. Forebears has a motto. The motto goes, not for self, but for others. And they were a living embodiment of that statement. You see, the power of questions is that they provide a pathway to a greater understanding. So we have got to continue to ask questions and be prepared to do something with the responses that we actually get. Because for those youth in Sierra Leone and their experience in the pursuit of creating the future that they want to see, there's a possible blueprint for you and for me. Because at the end of the day, how they view nation building is a paramount question, because the answer is as important for the future of Freetown as it was for those colonizers in Jamestown. It is as important for their youth in Bow as it is for our youth in Chicago. And it is as important in Kenema, where the diamonds are mined, as it is in Atlanta, where the diamonds are our mines, and anywhere else where you can find people striving to reach beyond great heights. Thank you.